Ooh, that looks tasty. Welcome, folks. Today, the Hungry Gamer is back with another game review, and today we're talking about Argent the Consortium from Level 99 Games and designed by Trey Chambers with art by Nocomento and Jennifer Easley. And I do apologize if I mispronounced any of those names. Now, what this game is it is a worker placement game in which you are taking on the role of a prospective head of the mage school in this world of Indines, and there are several other games from Level 99 Games in this world. One of my other favorite of them being Imperial Spells and Steam. Now, in this game, as I said, you are vying to be the head of the university. And to do that, you're going to have to do everything you can to convince as many of the voters as you can that you are the best candidate. And as I said, you'll be doing this through worker placement mechanics, though it is worker placement with a bit of a twist. And before I go any further, I'll say please turn on your Klingon subtitles, because if I make any mistakes in the rules overview, that's where you'll find the corrections. And also, this is not an actual setup of a game. I don't have enough of these tiles out here, and this, and this should all be dealt out in a market. These cards should be dealt out, and so on and so on. But with everything here, I'll be able to give you a rough overview of how the game works. Now, if you are not interested in how this game is played, and we'll jump into my final thoughts, then you should go to the timestamp on the screen right now. For those of us still here, let's talk about how this game is played. As I said, this game is a worker placement game, and we have here our various worker placement spots that you can go to. However, in this game, you will have different types of workers, which are these different colored mages that you have. And in each game that you played, these different mages will have different powers, which are determined by these cards right here. And so each one of these actually is double-sided. So with these blue mages, perhaps you can spend 3 coins and activate one of these special merit slots, which I'll explain briefly later on. Or, if you're playing with the other side, you are simply immune to all effects from spells. Or perhaps you're playing, or your red mage might just be that you're going to get extra mana when you place your red mage there for other mages there, or you're going to spend mana and you will basically fireball somebody else and send them off to the infirmary, thus opening up the spot that you wanted to stay on. And all of the different colors have double-sided cards, so every game it can be slightly different how they operate. Now, as I said at the beginning, your goal in the game is to get the most voters at the end of the game to vote for you. And you start the game with 2 out there. These 2 are going to vote for the person with the most supporters at the end of the game, which are these cards over here, and the one with the most influence, which is this score track around the board there. However, all of these others, and there are all of these in addition, which could be in the game, have a different threshold of something that they want in order to gain their vote. And at the beginning of the game, each player will get to place one of their marks out onto the board, which will allow them to, anytime they want, take a look at what that win condition for that specific voter is, though you can all players can eventually put their marks on all of the different cards if they play the game that way. But for example, if I flip this one over here, and we see that this one here wants you to have the most supporters and or magic power in divinity, which is blue, while the other one, just over here, wants the person to have the most mana. And as I said, all of them are different, and every now and then some of them are contradictory. And at the end of the game, you'll simply go through and evaluate all the cards, and whoever wins the most of those cards will win the game. Tie breaks being done by who put their mark on the card first. Though it's important to say that you don't have to have your mark on there to actually win the card, and you can actually observe what other people are doing to figure out what it is that they're trying to go for. Now, on your turn, you will have a choice of a couple of things that you can do. You can place a worker into one of the spots, and there are these special merit spots, which mean you have to have this resource here, the merit badge, in order to actually activate. But you go to a different spot, but you can simply send out one of your mages to a spot. You can, with a spell that you have unlocked by gaining these resources, like so, you can spend the mana and activate whatever the spell is, and these different spells, as you're playing through the game, you can make them more and more powerful, which gives you more and more options. You can use an artifact card, some of which are actions in order to use, and they all have very different effects. And the same thing with your supporter cards, all of which have very different effects that you are able to sometimes use as actions, sometimes you're able to use them as a swift action. Now, I mentioned swift actions. You're always allowed to take one action, which are, like I mentioned already, and one swift action, which are very specific abilities on specific spells, specific mages, or specific artifacts or supporters. And just as another reminder, you also always have the ability to use different mages' abilities. So, for example, black here, you'll notice it's black because of the base, really wanted this 2 influence spot. It could send their red mage here, spend a single mana, and then fireball blue out of there and into the infirmary, which in this case they would be able to get one of those different bonuses there, and red would take that spot. The other thing you can do is you can pick one of these end of round effects, and they all have something different on them, but what's important is once all of them have been taken, the round immediately ends, and you'll move into the next round. And you'll move into the evaluation of all of the different worker placement spots that have been claimed on the board. So as I'm just putting some of these out here, like so, what happens is you start at the top left of all of the rooms that are available, and you work down. So first, green will get to take this action here, which is either draft one of the supporters, which will, as I said at the beginning, will be in the market, or can place one of their marks out onto the board like so. Then the infirmary happens instantly. Then we'd come over here where black would immediately gain 2 influence. And then green would gain 1 influence for each player with more influence than they have, which in this case is 1. Then we come to the training field where black would get either a knowledge or a wisdom. And then you would go through all of the other rooms as well. Now's a good time to tell you that in every game you have a varying number of rooms based on players, though it's always more than 4, and every single different room you have does different things and are all double-sided, again doing different things per side, and you're going to play through the game through 5 rounds, and during those rounds, as I said, you'll be finding out what these voters want, trying to make sure that you have what it is that they want so you are able to get their vote at the end, assigning your workers to all of the different rooms that you have, and as you go through those rooms, you'll be getting more resources, you'll be gaining more spells from, again, there'll be a market that's out on the board, you'll be gaining more artifacts, again, from a market that's out on the board, perhaps you'll be gaining gold coins, which are used to buy these artifacts and some other things. You'll be gaining supporters, which are used for in-game voters. Sometimes they want more supporters in different types of schools of magic, and those supporters also have abilities that you're going to get, and so on and so on. And then, at the end of 5 rounds, whoever has won the most of these voters will win the game. And that's pretty much how this game works. So, what do I like about this game? I like almost everything about this game. Gosh, I love this game. This game is one that I kicked around getting for forever, I think. And Level 99 was just kind enough to, after I talked about playing it, that they sent me a copy. And I'm so happy that they did, because this game, I just really like this game. There is so much chaos. Controlled chaos, but chaos in this worker placement game. I love it. I love how all of the different workers have different powers. I love how sometimes you're going to go and you're going to blast their worker out of the spot. I think that's so cool. I love that you're getting something for it. I love that there's all these different spells that you're going to get, and you're going to be able to activate them, upgrade them, and do things with them. You've got to have those resources to use those spells. I think that's just fantastic. I love there's all these different rooms that you can get, and depending on your player count, you can get different ones in the game, which makes every game different. You're able to flip the tiles over, A sides and B sides. They do different things, variants on the theme. I think that works really well. And that's not even starting to get into the best part of the game, which is the way you win. And you have these deans or whatever voters out there, and not knowing what they want, and having to find the time to figure out, okay, I have to look here and figure out what this voter wants, and figure out what this voter wants, and then pursue that without letting on to the other players that's what you're doing.
and they change every game, especially you start adding in the expansions. I just think it's wonderful. It's just a fantastic game. I love it. I like the 2 little mini expansions. They add just a little bits to the game, a different style of play, and all of that. I just think that's just fantastic. This is one of my top worker placement games now. So, that said, what are my quibbles with the game? Well, the first thing is, it's a really heavy load to play, especially the first few times, because you got to read a lot of stuff. What does this room do? What does this room do? How is this room different from the other side? I've played with it to side A many times, but now it's side B. What does that do that's different? All the different spells, what are they going to do? How are they going to interact? All the different supporters that are out there, all the different artifacts that are out there. There's just so many things you have to understand, you have to read, and they're constantly changing throughout the game. And it can feel overwhelming. For me, I thought it was worth it to stick with it. But there were some people I played with that were just turned off by there was just such an overload of information. The next thing is, this is a mean worker placement game. And that's rare. There's not a lot of mean worker placement games out there. There are certainly some. But the fact that depending on which variant you're playing with, I can put my worker out there and it fireballs you and you're out of the spot and you're not going to get the thing that you set yourself up to get. I mean, that can lead to bad feelings. I mean, you get things for it and you can protect yourself, and that's all those things. Not to mention there's all kinds of spell abilities that are out there that do all kinds of different things. It's an aggressive, highly competitive worker placement game, and that might not be for you. The next thing I'll say is it works best at higher player count, I think, because at the higher player counts, you start to get to see more of the different rooms. There's some rooms that you always have to have in the game, and the more players you have, the more rooms that you get. And so you're really getting more of the full experience at the higher player counts. Now, that's not to say it doesn't work at 2-player. I actually didn't think it was going to work at 2-player, but I was like, no, I have to try it. And it does work at 2-player, but it's a very different experience. And to finish up the thought about the idea of needing a higher player count game, that does mean sometimes to really get the full experience, it's a longer game because you're playing with 4 people. You're going to have a longer experience, especially if it's your first plays and lots of people having to read and so on and so on. And all of those things kind of pile up. And then the last thing I'll say is, along with you have to read a lot, it has a kind of an older school vibe, just the way it looks and all the icons and the iconography and the text and all. And as I often say, this is not something that particularly bothered me, but I don't really care about that kind of stuff usually. But some of the people I played with did comment that they didn't like the iconography. It wasn't intuitive to them. And so that's just something you're going to have to kind of look at and figure out, is that true for me or not? But there you have it, folks. That is Argent, the Consortium. I personally don't have the big expansion, the Masters of the University one, which I wish I did. You can't find it. It's out of print. Though I do know, for those of you who have asked me, there is a reprint of that coming at some point. When that is, I don't know. But I wish I did have it. That's how much I like this game. I think I am just tickled by this game. And it's going to be one that goes into my regular kind of con rotation that I have. And then, other times too, but a great one to play at cons. I'm really looking forward to it. So there you have it, folks. That is Argent, the Consortium. As always, if I made any mistakes in the rules overview, please let me know in the comments with the timestamp so I can get that into the Klingon subtitles. If you found this video useful, please like, subscribe, share, maybe become a channel member. As always, thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.